we have to announce to have it streamed?
Yes, thank you. Hold on. Sorry, I'm working with a mouse that doesn't want to work tonight, and apparently it's the only mouse in the house, so.
We're live.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Blessing. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Milford Inlands Wetland regular meeting of December 7th, 2022. Let me do that again. Good evening, everybody. This is Brendan Magnan, Chair of the Inland Wetlands Commission. I'd like to call to order the December 7th, 2022 regular Inland Wetlands meeting. Lisa, please call the roll.
Ranjit Bahav, Daniel Bedecker,
Here.
Jim Connors,
Here.
Matthew Connors, Dave DeFlameri,
Here.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Here.
Steve Munson,
Here.
Jerry Panico, Lisa Tryon, Brendan Magnan.
Here. Great. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We do have a quorum. At this time, I'd like to invite Maros to present the flag. And before we stand for the pledge, just want to remind everyone, in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Vermont's executive orders, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the City of Milford website. During the meeting, please raise your hand if you'd like to present any information or speak, and wait for the chair to be recognized. For members of the applicants and the public, please state your name and address prior to making the first statement. At this time, I'd like to invite everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on to item C, public comments. Is there anyone here wishing to make comments from the public? Going once? Anyone from the public? Going twice? Last call for anyone wishing to talk on topics otherwise not on the agenda. Hearing none, moving on to D1, old business. Mary Rose, can you introduce this one?
This is the pre-application request by the property owner. It's IWPA 220091, 45 Woodmont Road. It's pre-application request by the property owner to allow clearing of trees and vegetation within 100 feet of wetlands and watercourses in the Indian River watershed for a future addition. I met with the applicant and his attorney yesterday, and this is the site to remind everyone. They are continuing to gather the information that we requested earlier in this fall when they first came in. They have asked for a jurisdictional ruling under Section 4 of the regulations. They acquired the site in the summer of 2022. And as the leaves have come down, they've noticed a bunch of the various debris that's been dumped on the property, and they'd like to clean. Some of it is large debris, and they would need to use a small machine to access it. So the jurisdiction would cover only the removal of debris from the site, and understanding that they'd have to use a small machine. There wouldn't be any removal of trees and vegetation. That would require an additional permit from the agency. And that any disturbance would require erosion controls and then stabilization with straw and seed.
Thank you, Mary Rose. So this evening, the agency can take no questions, request additional information, require a full application, approve the pre-application, or deny the pre-applications. What is...
And there's an additional question that they've asked if they can have a jurisdictional to clear debris on the site. We've got some landscaping debris, and then there's some heavy items that have shown up in the woods once the trees were down, the foliage was down.
I'd like to open up to the commissioners. Mr. Munson, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, I was just wondering, where is the debris they're intending to remove?
I believe there's a little bit of windblown debris in these areas of the site. I didn't see significant heavy debris, but I was on the site. They've got a tenant, and the tenant wasn't aware that I was allowed on the property. So I didn't get much past here to do further examination. I can walk the site with them and clarify exactly where the debris is going to be removed and where the machine work will be done later this week or early next week.
Okay. You say that there was something that they may need machinery to remove it? I mean, what?
Right, Mr. Funk, Roger Funk is the owner of the property, and he stated that there is some large debris. There's some landscaping dumping that he'd have to pull out with a small machine. And he said it sounded like a large hunk of metal. He didn't say exactly where it was or what
Okay.
it had been.
I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I think it's okay.
I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not sure about anyone else, but this application leads to a lot of questions. I'd like to open it up for others because I'm definitely not comfortable with just approving a jurisdictional ruling based on what I see.
So
I
you would
agree
like
with
to,
Brandon.
Mr. Chair, you would like to know where the items are and what would be removed?
I'd like a full application.
Okay.
I hear tree cleaning, tree clearing, and then I hear requests for, using equipment to remove stuff. Where, what's the plan? What's the impact to the wetlands? And what relationship is, I mean, I'm actually not sure why there's a predetermination that because of the, amount of work that there's not a predetermination that an application is warranted. Mr. Munson?
Yeah, from what it seemed to me that all they're asking for is permission to remove some debris before they, I think eventually we're going to need an application on this. But it seems like they're just looking to maybe clear the property a bit so that a application might be a little cleaner, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, if all they're looking to do at the moment is to clean the property up without removing any trees or anything or doing any disturbance. I mean, I don't want.
I sort of want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but the plan shows proposed tree clearing for phase one.
Yes, that was there.
It causes questions for me, and I'd like to hear it from others because others are comfortable with this. I'd like to know why. Mr. Becker?
This is not the first pre-application that they wanted. First, it was to remove trees. Now it's to remove debris, and they might have to move the trees to move the debris.
Right.
I agree with Brendan. We need a full application. What they're really going to do with this piece of property.
Exactly. We just need to understand their intent. Commissioner Becker.
Yes, through you, Chairman, Commissioner Bedeker, Milford, Connecticut. The way I read it, it sounds like there's some debris that was unforeseen until like the leaves came down, and then of course they were able to see it back there. It would be nice if we knew what it was and where it was, but the way I read the I can't remember, it's Article 4 or
It's Section 4.
Yeah, Section 4. You're allowed to do this. Yeah, it would be nice if we knew what they were moving and where it was, and that would be much easier just to, okay, you're cleaning it up, but you're not taking anything down, you just clean up the property. That's great. So if we could find out where it is, what they're cleaning up, and what kind of machine they're using. Make sure it doesn't end up like other machines that have tried to work around the marshlands. That would be great. I'd be acceptable at.
You have more information based on, right?
Okay,
Any other
more
thoughts?
information is always good.
Any other thoughts, Commissioner Gladue?
No, I agree with you guys.
Great, okay. So Mary Rose, do you have what you need to go back to the owner?
Yes, I will tell him that the agency would like to see the full application for the addition that he's proposing, and would like to quantity and where the cleaning is, what you're cleaning up, what kind of machine, what's the potential disturbance, and what the proposal is to avoid any further disturbance or removal of trees and vegetation.
Thank you, Mary Rose.
Thank you.
Moving on to item E2. You want to introduce this one, Mary Rose?
It's a typo on my part. This is item D2. And this is the modification to IWA 16045, 553 West Avenue. It's a proposal by MetroStar to modify an approval we gave for a 342 unit apartment complex back in 2016, and change that, modify it to a 192 unit apartment complex with associated stormwater parking and grading, all within 150 feet of the wetlands in the Beaver Brook watershed. Proposal eliminates approximately 0.09 acres of wetland filling. And it takes out, there had been an access drive to Schoolhouse Road, and this proposal does not require that. And that had required a significant amount of work for flood zone and for wetlands and for environmental precautions for threatened and endangered species on the site. Plans have been reviewed by the city engineer. The applicant has agreed to his stormwater recommendations. City engineer noted that he had a typo in his memo, that it mentioned that there was wetland filling on the site. There is no wetland filling proposed for this application, for this modification. This evening, we have attorney Chris Smith and engineers Dave Golombieski and Dave Seiko from TPA.
Great, thank you, Mary Rose. Attorney Smith, is there anything you wanted to add to the record?
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, Ms. Palumbo and Madam Clerk. I think Blake Smith, I believe, is on. And I
Do see, yes.
I'm not sure if Blake had any comments.
You took my job and introduced my experts already, Mary Rose. But
Sorry about that.
I have no comments, but we're free to ask questions if you guys have any.
Great, thanks very much.
No, that's fine. That's fine, Blake. And as you're aware, we did appear before you on November 16th, 2022. This is a request to modify a permit that was approved by the agency back in 2016. As Mary Rose indicated, the application is concerns the reduction of the units, the number of units that are in this residential community from 342 units to 189 units. In addition, the proposal is there were modifications to not only the density, but also a redesign of the plan. As Mary Rose indicated, one of the access driveways was eliminated. And with regards to the reductions and eliminations of many of the regulated activities that were approved, we no longer need an Army Corps permit. We are enhancing the visual impact of the residential community relative to the Beaver Brook, boardwalk and trail network. But I do think that the key here with this application is we're staying within the scope of the regulated activities approved in 2016. We're not proposing any new regulated activities. And as you heard on the first evening, the plan and the regulated activities associated with it, not surprisingly, because they're less than what was approved, do not result in an adverse impact to a wetland or watercourse, and otherwise complies with Section 22A41 of the Connecticut General Statutes and your criteria. There were some questions concerning the landscape plan. As Mary Rose indicated, we did get a memo in from the city engineer. We don't have any issues with those conditions. If you'd like, Mr. Chairman and members of the agency, Mr. Sacco, a professional civil engineer with the TPA design group, is here, and he can address the comments from the city engineer. But again, we don't have any objection to them. And Mr. Golubuski of TPA Design Group is also here to respond to any questions, if there are any, relative to the landscape plan, and in particular with the biofiltration swale. There was a question from one of the agency members on November 16th, and we indicated that we'd get back to you on that. If you'd like to hear from both of those individuals, Mr. Chairman, I can turn it over to Mr. Sacco, and then we'll hear from Mr. Golubuski.
That would be great. Mr. Smith, I think it's the latter part that we'd be interested. I don't think we need to discuss the engineering discussion, since we already heard from Mary Rose on that.
Fair enough. Mr. Golubuski? Dave?
And I believe you're on mute.
I think I'm on mute.
No, we hear you now.
Mr. Chairman, my name is David Golubuski, landscape architect with TPA Design Group. Joined by my colleague, David Sacco, PE, who's going to screen share. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave.
We do see a screen.
Okay, you should be able to see the screen.
And my understanding, Mr. Chairman, from being briefed from the November 16th meeting, is there was some discussion of the condition of the existing landscape, particularly at the stormwater outfall, particularly in the areas of the energy dissipators in the area of C, D, E, and F. And that's right in the area that Dave is circling his cursor. And what we thought would be the best way to address that question is if we went to a photograph or two that we have of the area, share that with the commission members, and describe the existing landscape in this area and where the stormwater discharge would be. For orientation, if you look in your lower right-hand corner, looking northwest from Beaver Brook, that's where the blue arrow would be, where the stormwater discharge would be, and to the right up on the hill would be building D. The condition of the landscape here is forest canopy, of mature canopy, of not giant trees because the site's disturbed for so many years, but a mix of hardwoods, including American beech, red oak, sugar maple, birch, and so forth, and scattered white pine. I think the rest of the commission members are familiar with the white pine stand that borders the Beaver Brook area. But I wanted to show this slide as well as the next slide to show that where the stormwater discharges are. And this is a photograph from this spring. It's kind of end of April, May. I think it was May 5th, right, Dave? Somewhere around then.
Yeah, it was first week of May.
That shows the existing ground covers where the stormwater discharges would be. And this is some 195 feet from where our stormwater discharge would be to Beaver Brook. So it's traveling over a relatively gentle slope, an established vegetative ground cover, ground plane, through 195 feet of kind of woods to remain, if you will. And this is pretty typical of the condition of the existing grade where the stormwater outfalls would occur. And I think there was some discussion about the nature of the landscape and if I remember the term, the robustness of the existing landscape in the vicinities of the stormwater outfalls. I also like to point out that the stormwater outfalls each will have non-erosive velocities. So anything that exits from the storm drainage system through the energy dissipators would all be of non-erosive velocities.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, back through you. I hope that addresses the question about what the condition of the landscape was where these stormwater outfalls were.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on that matter from the agency? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any other questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize. It took me a second to get to the screen. There's recommendations by Mr. Pop. I believe Mr. Pop is on the call. He's the environmental, the professional wetland scientist on the project. He had recommended an attempt to eradicate some Japanese knotweed on a portion of the site, a small area that's in the compensatory flood storage area. And he had also recommended in his recommendation number 2, which I can share. I'm sorry, I'm reading instead of sharing. His recommendations were for work on the stand of Japanese knotweed and in the evergreen stand of 20 native hollies or red cedars at about 5 to 6 feet height planted on the south side of the development's new road in groupings. So not necessarily in the area that we were just shown, but in response to additional plantings. Actually, this was before that question came up. This came out on the 15th.
Great, thank you for highlighting that, Mary Rose. We'd want to make that recommendation a condition of any potential approval. Is on behalf of the applicant, are you including that as part of your plan, Mr. Golubowski?
Yes, Mr. Chair, David Golubiewski again, TPA Design Group. We would accept those conditions on behalf of the applicant, the recommendations of Mr. Pop.
Okay. Okay, hearing the discussion, Mary Rose, is there anything else we need to consider as part of the record?
All right, this is a modification of to downsize a rather large approval. And that approval had a number of conditions that aren't applicable to this application. There was creation of turtle habitat. We don't necessarily need to create turtle habitat because you're not reconditioning that portion of the site. But there's a environmental fence that would need to be repositioned to protect the turtles from entering the development. Which I think Mr. Pop has spoken with the applicant about. So I've taken, normally when you modify an application, modify a permit, you just add additional conditions for whatever the modification is. In this case, the proposed motions that you have this evening, your approval to have a public hearing, walk the site, ask for more information to approve or deny. The approval motion has a full set of motions to bring it into line with what this application is. The previous approval had 500-pound boulders to keep cars and things out of a mitigation wetland. They're not going to be in the wetland. They're not necessary to create a wetland. We don't need that in this approval. So I've thinned down the conditions that were proposed for this to something applicable to this site rather than to the previous site. The previous approval had a trigger that after 90 days after their final approval, after their zoning approval, or their building approval, they would submit to the agency their stormwater maintenance plan, their final mitigation plan, if anything changed, because they still had a number of places, including the Army Corps, to go to before they got into the ground. So just so when you look at those proposed conditions, it seems like a lot for a modification, but we're basically trimming away the things that aren't applicable because the site has so much less impact than the previous approved one.
Great, thanks, Mary Rose, appreciate that, and guidance. And I would recommend that, providing we do deliberate in a moment here, I would recommend that you take the lead in reading the motion, just given the complexity around this, and given your expertise. So,
through you, Mr. Chair, this is Ranjit. Sorry, like I'm in the swimming pool area, so that's why there is a lot of noise. So I couldn't participate before, but I just have a quick question, if I can ask.
please.
These apartment complexes will create a lot of impervious area, and obviously it will increase the flow going to the Beaver Brook. So I just wanted to know if any hydraulic analysis was conducted for the flows in the Beaver Brook, if that will cause any flooding downstream later on.
So it's a little bit difficult to hear, but Mary Rose, maybe you could just repeat the question for the applicants.
Right. I believe the question was, there's a lot of impervious area for parking along with apartment complexes. Has this been looked at to ensure that there would be no additional flooding in the Beaver Brook area due to that increase in impervious area? Is that
Correct?
Ranjit?
Yeah.
I believe that's the question.
For the record, Chris Smith, that's a good question. And again, this is a modification of the prior approval. I'm saying that more for Mr. Bahavi, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But I think that perhaps Dave Sacco, if you could, or Dave Golubuski, one of the two of you might want to respond to that and clarify that for Mr. Bahavi. Thank you.
Certainly. David Sacco, TPA Design Group. As part of this application, we did submit a complete stormwater management analysis to the Milford City engineer for his review. The design intent of the stormwater system is to maintain the post-development storm runoff at levels at or less than the existing levels under prevailing conditions today, so that there is no significant increase, or there's no discernible increase in runoff to the Beaver Brook as a result of the proposed improvements, because we're using a series of measures in order to attenuate runoff, things like stormwater infiltration systems and stormwater treatment units to make sure that we maintain water quality and do not have increases in volume that would affect the Beaver Brook. Specifically with regard to the flood issue, we are providing compensatory volume for flood storage, since we have to do a little bit of minor filling in one area for a road crossing. That work has been evaluated by a hydraulic engineer, and we found that his finding is that there is no increase in future flooding elevation as a result of the proposed work.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to Mr. Bahavi, that I just would like to remind Mr. Bahavi that the city engineer for the city of Milford did review this proposal, and specifically relative to the stormwater issues. And I don't think he said any of his comments were more than happy to have added as conditions, if the commission were to see, agency, excuse me, were to see fit to approve this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is Ranjit. As I understand, the permit was approved in 2016. That's almost 6 years ago. And since last 6 years, FEMA has increased its frequencies of storms. So obviously there is going to be more water that will be generated as compared to what they may have computed in 2016. So I just wanted to, make sure that the new volumes are still within the limits.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bove. Back to the applicant team.
Thank you. David Sacco again, TPA Design Group. The plans do take into account the most recent FEMA flood mapping and modeling, and we are responding to those conditions. And the stormwater analysis reflects the most recent data available from the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration with respect to rainfall rates and frequencies. So we are trying to model the most current data that's available for this area.
Okay, thank you. That will be all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions, Commissioner Bove. Any other questions for the applicant from the commissioners?
No,
Did Commissioner Donaldson Gladue and Commissioner DeFilmeri, did you have a chance to familiarize yourself with the minutes from the last meeting and from the application that was presented in order to render a vote this evening?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner DeFilmeri? I think you're on mute, Commissioner DeFilmeri.
How about a yes now?
Sorry?
How about yes now?
Yes, I can hear you. Just wanted to be certain because, this application is a very large application, so we want to make sure everybody's comfortable with rendering a decision. Is there any other information we need before rendering a decision? If not, I'm willing to entertain a motion. And
would you like a motions?
well, if you'd like to sort of directionally make a motion that either you're in favor or you're in opposition to the.
I'm in favor of this application. It's a massive improvement from the previous one.
Yeah, that's what I
I'm
was.
in favor.
You're in favor for the same reason. And is there any other views from the commissioners? So I believe we have a motion. I guess what I would just, because the motions are very lengthy and complicated, as Mary Rose explained, I would be more comfortable if Mary Rose were to read the draft motion to approve for that reason. And we could
I
consider.
have no problem with that.
Yeah. Mary Rose?
All right. And just for the applicants understands, the commissioners all got a suite of motions to look at and decide if that's what they were for or against. So they have this paper in front of them. Mr. Chairman, I move that permit IWA 16045 553 West Avenue be modified as shown on the plans entitled Beaver Brook Apartments, 553 West Avenue, Milford, Connecticut, by TPA Design Group, cover in 22 sheets, submitted 11/10/22, based on the information in the file and presented this evening for the following reasons. The applicant has decreased the wetland impacts from 0.52 acres to 0 acres. The applicant has decreased the disturbance in the upland review area by 4.34 acres. The action will not have an impact or effect on the physical characteristic of the adjacent wetlands and watercourses. With the conditions including, as a condition of approval within 90 days of receiving final approvals to proceed with construction of the proposed development, the applicant owner agree to prepare and file with the agency staff for its review and approval, mitigation monitoring plan with benchmarks for success. Mitigation monitoring is to include but not be limited to stabilization, plant survival, and herpetofauna. An updated modified turtle protection and relocation plan in coordination with the Connecticut DEEP. Stormwater maintenance plan, including clean out schedule for the stormwater system, structures, plunge pools, and forebays. This maintenance plan must be added to the City of Milford land records prior to the permit condition bond being released. The applicant owner agrees as a condition of approval that tenant rules and regulations will prohibit free roaming of pets and the washing of vehicles on the site. The applicant owner with the agency as part of its landscaping installation and maintenance in the residential development. I believe that is to submit to the agency as part of their landscaping installation, maintenance in the residential development area, a plan to control and limit the use of pesticides and herbicides within the proposed residential development. Because such a plan will provide for removal of invasive plants and other potential disturbances, it will not apply within the other conservation easement areas on the site without additional review and approval. The permittee must submit a construction plan prior to taking out the permit. Any changes to the plan must be reviewed by the MIWA for compliance with this approval. Soil erosion sedimentation controls as outlined on the plans and in the Connecticut DEP 2002 erosion sedimentation control guidelines must be installed and maintained on the site until the property is stabilized. Wetland notification to be placed on the as-built and in the property deed to give notification to the property owners that permits are required from the MIWA to work on the site. If the permittee or owner chooses to change the professionals on the project, the resumes and CVs of the proposed new professionals must be reviewed and approved by the agency to ensure that the professional is familiar with and understands the permit conditions. A permit condition bond to be calculated must be posted with the MIWA prior to any site disturbance for sedimentation erosion controls, wetland boundary markers, and an as-built showing finished 2-foot contours, and locating all site utilities and structures to ensure that the site development was completed according to the approved design. The as-built must be submitted by a licensed surveyor and include certification by a registered engineer that the facilities meet the design intent of the approval. The bond may not be released until the site is stabilized, the as-built has been received, and the site inspected and approved for compliance with the permit. Mitigation bond to be calculated will be held for a minimum period of 3 years, with monthly reports during construction and growing season by the professional wetland scientists to the MIWA on the status of the site and recommended amendments to the mitigation plan for best stabilization of the site. Once the benchmarks for success have been reached and the final wetland professional report has been reviewed and approved, the mitigation bond may be released. The permittee must submit a certification by the project engineer that the completed project meets the design intent of the approval prior to the bonds being released. Permit was issued on September 21st, 2016, and currently expires on September 21st, 2026, unless otherwise provided by Connecticut statute. That is the motion.
Thank you. That was a motion by Mr. Connors, read by Mary Rose Palumbo. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
A second from Commissioner DeFamari. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Mary Rose, I would like to bring up a discussion point on the condition that reads, if the permittee or owner chooses to change the professionals on the project, the resumes and CVs of the proposed new professionals must be reviewed and approved by the agency to ensure that the professional is familiar, etc. Is that intended to mean when it says by the agency, shouldn't that be stated as by your office? I don't believe you would want 11 commissioners to review the project resumes.
I think at the initial approval, there was a lot of moving parts and it was significantly larger. And the work in the wetland was much more detailed. And usually on projects of that size, we have this requirement. In the past, we've had issues where projects approved and someone else comes in and maybe they don't have the right qualifications and then they don't understand what was approved and things fall down from there. The office can certainly review those items for the agency and report to the agency.
I was just trying to make sure that word agency was really what I was trying to suggest, is that really be the compliance officer on our behalf.
Well, the other thing I would add to this is the developer's track record with whatever they've built has been first class, and I don't see this going any other way.
Yeah, it's more of a discussion point. I'm comfortable with it either way, but it's probably a moot point.
So do you want to amend the motion?
It's fine, as Jim said, I'm comfortable with it for that reason, so. Any other discussion on the motions or motion? So Lisa, roll call vote on the motion.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
That was an aye.
okay, sorry.
Sorry.
You broke up, I heard.
Dave DeFlameri,
Aye.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you to the applicant for coming before us with the modification. Good luck on the project.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone. Have a
Commissioner.
nice holiday and
Thanks
New
very
Year.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Rose.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for the excellent deliberation in that process, both this meeting and last. Thanks, Mary Rose, for guiding us through that. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda.
Item on the agenda is the consideration of minutes of the previous meeting.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to approve
I'll
those?
make that motion.
Motion has been
Second.
and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Dave DeFlameri,
Aye.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
I sustain as I wasn't here.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. The vote carries. Next up, Mary Rose, the staff report. And
Alrighty.
actually, I'm sorry, just for the record, Commissioner DeFamari, I believe you were absent, so did you?
Yes, I changed my vote to abstain.
Okay, just to make sure. Thank you. Mary Rose?
Sorry. Just moving something along. The staff report really hasn't changed that much. We still have 3 commissioners who are up for renewal. They should have gotten their letters from the mayor's office by now. That would be Commissioners Munson, Panico, and Tryon. Please let the mayor's office know if you're interested in being reappointed. And just a reminder, if you've got any friends that you'd like to, see twice a month on a Wednesday night, we have 1 opening as an alternate member. Training links are included as always. This is a show of hands. How many people have been through the training program? I know Mr. Connors did it a long time ago. I know Brendan did it. Dave did it. I think, Dan, you did it as well, didn't you?
I believe so.
I think you did. We were just having a discussion in the office the other day. I think Steve did
Training
it when you
programs.
Yeah, I did 2/3.
You did 2/3. I remember that. You did 2/3 one year and the other third the other year, and they wouldn't give you the break.
Right.
Mary Rose, I'm not sure what training I did, but I did send you a certificate of some sort.
Okay, it was like a 9 or 10 hour online training from Deep, but if they sent you a certificate, that was it.
Yep.
If you could send a copy of that to me, we just keeping track of that in the office. And I believe I know Ranjit did it as well.
I think I did send it to you, just so you know. So maybe check your email because I don't have the Board of Ed email anymore.
All right, I'll take a look for it. Thank you. So again, we have all those training options still available if you want them. Land Use Academy is always out there. Hazard mitigation plan, it's not going away just yet. That survey's still out there if you want to take it. There will be a public information meeting in early January. If you'd all like to attend, it's a rousing hour of information on all the hazards that we're exposed to here in town. And site work, 1553 Boston Post Road, Splash Car Wash is doing very well. They are stable, pavement is out, vegetation is established. They're doing quite well on their site. Other sites, we still don't have germination on Labour Lane. I think we're going to have to revisit that in the spring. No real change on any other properties. 420 West River Street is the cemetery that was approved a while ago. They've put their mitigation plantings in, they've monitored them, they've got their boundary markers up, they've submitted me an as-built. I've done the site walk, I just have to do the final review for their bond release. And they've had reasonable germination. They've had a lot of issue with deer, which they're trying to work through, which you can't believe the damage that a deer can do. We've had a few issues on the subdivision at West Rutland Road. We may see some of those coming forward. Instead of one 14 lot subdivision with 5 that had wetlands on it, they're being sold to individual people. So they're all in various states of some kind of flux, but there's one main bond with different people in charge of the lots now. I'm working through that with the DPLU and the city attorney's office to determine if we're going to issue individual permits to the people who are actually working on the site, so we can keep a tight rein on that. And that's pretty much where we are. We're working on the hazard mitigation and the community rating system service, which is taking a little bit of our time. Anybody have any questions?
Oh,
Any luck with Orinoco Road? I should call it Dump Road.
I brought it up to Public Works. They're aware of it. And difficulty we have on a lot of city properties is people, if they're not utilized on a regular basis, people find a way to dump there, and the city tries to pick it up as they can, as manpower allows. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of manpower right now.
Is there a dumping concern there, Heather?
Yeah, it's wetlands and they dump all over.
Yeah, there's a curve in the road there that's a nice place to walk. It's peaceful, but there's a lot of it's isolated, so it's easy to dump on.
Okay.
I was hoping maybe the city would put some trail cameras in, because it's the same guy. At one point, I did bring his mail back to him and said, I think he lost it. And, you know, they didn't like that I brought their mail back to him.
Yeah, you got it all in the car. You're on Orinoco, you're very close to the dump.
Yep, true.
It is a continued issue that the open space, Public Works and I worked on together a lot. We don't have a lot of good answers on it, because there's 54,000 of you guys and there aren't a lot of us.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you trying.
And we
Likewise,
will continue to.
thanks for bringing it up, Heather. It's difficult when citizens are not responsible. And just looking at Narrows, the status report you put in, the synopsis for us is very helpful. That's a very very insightful report.
Yeah, some of the projects have been going for a while. We're owed as-built, and there's a couple of things that are hanging out there that it's taken a long time to get these houses done. But then other things are coming through and moving through quite quickly. So,
but just looking at the total, the list of 20 or so, how does this compare to other municipalities? I mean, do they all have the same volume and level of?
I think for our area, us down to Fairfield, it's very similar. As you go in or east, I think it lightens up a little bit, but there's been a lot of development. It's a desirable place to live. It's a reasonable commute to the city, and people don't necessarily need to commute now. So they're looking for convenience, amenities, and a good community. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your prep work for all the meetings throughout 2022. I know we only have one meeting left, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but thanks very much. on behalf of the agency, Mary Rose.
Welcome.
Great. Moving on to Chair's report. Next meeting, final meeting for the year, December 21st. Let the office know if you're unable to attend. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
You have it.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second,
Mr. Munson. Roll call vote.
You're muted, Lisa.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Lindsay. We're just about done. We just have to vote.
Ranjit Bahav,
Aye.
There you go.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Dave DeFlameri,
aye.
Heather Donaldson Gladue,
Aye.
Steve Munson,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you,
Nice
everyone.
holiday.
Have a good holiday.
Bye.
Oh, we've got one more meeting.
We have one more meeting.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Christmas holiday. that is.
Hopefully.
All right,
Good
have a
night.
good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.